Hi, okay.
Okay.
Are we live?
You're live
Yeah.
Oh,
on
we're
both.
live. Cool.
Let's go. We live, baby. Let's get started.
Let me just open this up. Sure, if you don't mind, before we get started.
Alright,
We'll be with you at home.
we'll be with you
Okay.
in a moment. Alright, let's get it.
Okay, so it's our launch week for our Like You Care campaign, and we hope you guys have all been checking out all the great content that we've been putting out.
And if you haven't, go to teenswinterdrive.com when this live stream ends, and then you can check out everything that's been happening.
Our Like You Care campaign encourages better driving habits and aims to change driving culture.
So we want to encourage all drivers, riders, pedestrians, and cyclists to care about the actions of both themselves and the other people on the road.
In Ontario, things are changing fast, and you can only drive like you care once you know the facts.
So here's the current scenario in Ontario. So we're going to be talking about 5 different topics. The first one's going to be tailgating parties. The second topic is going to be marijuana availability. The third topic is going to be the distracted driving law changes. The fourth topic is going to be alcohol availability. And then the fifth and final topic is going to be the proposed speed limit changes. So the way this is going to work is we're going to pick out one of the topics. We're going to read the description on the back, find out what the scenario is in Ontario, and then from there we're going to debate it and discuss it until the timer goes off.
And take a stance.
So just to introduce ourselves, I am Oliver and I am 22.
My name is Serena, and I am 19.
My name's Nicole and I'm 21.
And my name is Marcus and I'm 24.
Okay, awesome. Let's get things going.
Yeah,
Get it
let's
started.
get
started.
Alright, so I'll pick the first topic. I think I'm gonna do tailgating parties. Alright, we got it written down. Okay. So tailgate parties are outdoor events where people can bring their own food and alcohol, and you can sell food and alcohol, obviously. There are a lot of rules and regulations. They must be held in connection with and in proximity to a live professional, semi-professional, or post-secondary sporting event. You need a permit that takes at least 30 days to get for a non-refundable fee of $150. You must notify the municipal authorities 30 days before the event takes place if fewer than 5,000 people per day are expected to attend the event. Event or 60 days before the event takes place if 5,000 per day or more people are expected to attend the event. The permit holder must provide security sufficient to ensure that the conditions of the permit and requirements of the Liquor License Act are observed. Anyone can attend a tailgate event unless the permit holder has chosen to host an age-restricted event. Permit holders may sell and serve alcohol, and attendees 19 years of age or older may bring liquor, BYOB, for consumption at the event within the permitted event. All right, so what do you guys think about the legalization of tailgate parties?
3, 2, 1.
Hey.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah. All right, so why are we on the same page right now? Why do you guys think this is a good idea to have?
Well, I think for me at least, it all seems fairly regulated. And so I think that's kind of the main thing where as long as things, I think they're better off being regulated. So when it comes to alcohol consumption, I think these things, once they are regulated, makes it that much easier to control. And I think that makes it so that it's, okay, yeah, still, it's a fun thing, but it's still able to control it or more, have greater control level.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Like it's not like it's just letting them run wild and do whatever. There are still some rules and regulations, obviously. And I haven't gone to a tailgate party, but I feel like it can bring kind of a community together if it's done right and done in a safe manner. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially because now Toronto has like a whole sports scene going
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
So-
exactly. It's hype now. It's hype.
So it's appropriate for the times.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you guys ever been to a tailgating party before? Or
No.
Have you?
I have. I've been to them in the States before, and I think they're really fun. It's a really great way to kind of bring the community together. But I think a lot of people might I think it could get a little complicated if people aren't really aware of what's actually supposed to be going on.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
true. Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to kind of like establish what the rules are because like there can be alcohol there, but it still is 19 plus, right? Like, but underage people can go to these events still, and it kind of has to be like, hey, even though we're having fun and whatever, you can't break these certain laws. They're still in place. Right?
Yeah, it's just like any restaurant or anything
Yeah.
like that. It still goes by the same laws. It's just because now it's more of a party environment. I guess
Mhm.
you have to be mindful of that.
For sure. The one thing I found really interesting was you can only do it at like semi-pro events, so things like TFC or like the Argos,
Oh, wow.
or like like professional ones, or even
Yeah.
like university sports is fine. But you could have like a tournament and then host a tailgate party. Like that won't be covered, which I find kind of
Oh.
interesting. So I feel like that would be one that, like, when you think about like a large scale tailgating party, like you're gonna have people working for those large companies are gonna be the ones that actually put all of this in place. So they'll be really familiar with the rules and regulations. But I think like people might be under the impression that anyone can just host
Yeah.
a tailgating party,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of, it has to be close to certain things and things you have to kind of
That's
take into
true.
consideration.
And you have to really plan ahead. It was like
Yeah.
a 30-day or 60
Yeah,
day.
Yeah,
30 days.
30
yeah.
days.
Yeah, 30
Yeah,
days.
30
And
days is a
you have
long
to
time.
know how many people, just
Yeah.
over 5,000, under 5,000. So, like, definitely, I feel like, well, I hope people aren't, like, looking at this as, like, something and they just go carelessly and do these parties or something, but, like, like, kind of look at the rules first, right?
Yeah, I think that's why the regulations are in place.
No, I think so too. I think it's just making sure that people truly understand like what's actually supposed to be going on. And that does kind of go to like the consumer as well. You can't just, blindly walk into things. You have to really understand what's actually going to be happening. So you're like prepared. The one thing I'm kind of curious about is like just like how it's all going to work for the first time, and even what sports are
Mhm.
truly going to be appropriate. If you think about a place like BMO, where there's a lot of space, like you have exhibition grounds, you have a ton of space where you have a tailgating party. But if you think about something in the downtown core, where would this event even
Yeah.
take place?
That's true.
And then
A lot big enough to fit all those people.
with cars,
With cars.
with
yeah.
cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because everybody's driving there, they have to be mindful. Like, you have to have that designated
Yeah,
driver.
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just pull up and then be like, all right, well, I don't know how I'm getting home. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
here now, right?
Well, a lot of people also, I guess I'm curious to see how it's going to go, because at tailgating parties, everyone likes to have a really good time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in like, what's different between a tailgating party and a regular party is the party continues when you go inside. If anything, people are going to drink
yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Now that
yeah.
they're watching the game, they're having a great time. They're already feeling kind of a buzz from
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not really sure like how that'll all kind of play out. I
Yeah.
think it could be a really fun thing, but it all depends on how they decide to actually regulate it. And I'm curious to see how many companies are actually going to, or organizations are actually going to take advantage of something like this.
That's true.
Yeah.
And when you went to your tailgating party in the States, did you find that, like, even though it was fun and stuff, people were kind of within the rules, or was it just like,
It was kind of a hit or miss experience for the most part. It was a really good thing for families because it gave them the opportunity to have a barbecue and stuff before the game, because we all know it can be very expensive to buy
yeah,
food.
that's
So
true.
it's a really good time for sports fans, especially, to kind of unite and like hang out. But you definitely have people that are a little bit out of control and pretty silly and crazy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I bet.
it all varies.
I guess that's anywhere you go, any club, any
Mhm.
bar, there's gonna be like reckless people out there.
No, for sure.
Alright.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on to our next topic. So
Just
then,
quick, it sounds like there's trouble with the audio.
is there?
Is there? You fixed
Oh,
it?
Oh,
cool.
fix it. Okay.
Alright.
Okay, awesome.
That was our alarm.
Yeah. So we'll move on to our next topic, which is going to be marijuana availability. So I guess I'll just read what the current scenario in Ontario is for that. So if you are 19 or over, you can purchase cannabis online through the Ontario Cannabis Store in person at a privately run authorized retailer. You're permitted to purchase up to 30 grams, that's about 1 ounce, of dried recreational cannabis at one time for personal use. Similar to the rules for alcohol, if you are transporting cannabis in a motorized vehicle, it must be unopened, so it has to be fastened, and it's in original packaging and in a packed bag that is not readily available to anyone in the vehicle. Police officers have tools to determine if you are impaired and now are authorized to use oral fluid screening devices at roadside to help enforce the law. Novice and commercial drivers are prohibited from having any presence of cannabis in their system. If police determine that you have the presence of cannabis in your system and are impaired by the substance, you will face severe consequences such as immediate license suspension, financial penalties, possible vehicle impoundment, possible criminal record, and possible jail time. Even if you have been authorized to use cannabis or another drug by a healthcare professional, it is your responsibility to ensure that you are not impaired while driving. Okay, so what do we think about, I guess it'd be more along the lines of like the new screening devices and like transportation. What do you guys all think about that?
3, 2, 1.
Hey.
Okay.
All right, we're all in
We're on
agreement.
the same page.
Yeah. I should have just done this.
So why do you guys think that?
Well, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it is driving impaired if you are under the influences of marijuana at
Yeah.
all. And people don't take it as seriously as driving under the influences of alcohol. But once they know, hey, there's all these now new rules and regulations in place, it's a really serious thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like that's part of our like one of our things at like TL2D is to kind of be like, hey, even though like you may think, oh well, I'm a better driver while high. We've heard all that stuff before, and like, oh well, he's drunk, I'm not gonna drive with him, but he's high, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
But that shouldn't pass. So there should be some laws against that. Like, yes, it's legal to smoke and stuff and all this stuff now, but like you gotta be responsible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is kind of crazy how much stuff we'll hear like going on, like the events that we do about like, oh yeah, like, oh, but it's not as big a deal if we're driving high compared to like driving drunk. But that's just, it still affects your impaired. You are still impaired. It's just people don't realize the different ways that you become impaired when it compared to alcohol and marijuana.
I think the one thing for me that I didn't even know was the transportation of marijuana. I didn't
Mm.
realize
Oh,
that it had to
yeah.
be in the original packaging. Like I had no
Yeah,
idea. I would
that's
have just
crazy.
assumed that if it was kind of similar to alcohol, if it's in a spot where the driver can't get to it,
Yeah.
I figured that would have been enough. It needs to be in the complete original packaging.
That's
and it's
really
like fasting
interesting.
too.
Yeah.
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 So
What is there? Do we know why? Like, is it just?
I'm not sure.
That's
I guess it's to
interesting.
ensure that you purchased it legally and you purchased
Yeah,
it through that
Yeah,
authorized
that's very
dealer.
true.
So
Yeah.
they know. I think the one thing that it gets a little tricky is everyone's body, and like similar to alcohol, of course, but everyone's body reacts to
Reacts
marijuana
differently.
differently, and it
Yeah,
also
yeah.
can stay in your system
For
for a
different
very long
reasons.
time.
Oh, yeah,
So what do you
definitely.
guys think about the new way, like how they're going to be using like oral fluid screening? What do you guys kind of think about that?
Well, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Just because, like you were saying, a lot of people don't know just how long it can be in your system
Yeah.
for, and you don't know how that could affect you.
Mhm.
And so by knowing it's not just like a quick thing that happens,
Yeah.
and it can affect you more long term than you're expecting,
Yeah.
this just helps with the reality of that situation.
Exactly, and just like you said, it's like everyone's tolerance is different, right? So maybe somebody might smoke a certain amount and be able to compose themselves a certain way, so it's not easy to tell, like,
Yeah.
okay, how much did they really smoke? So like having these things to really like officially tell is important because you can't always tell just by looking at something.
For sure. So I think one thing that also can be kind of interesting is you hear a lot about people who have medical marijuana certificates, and they, think that kind of puts them like they're like, oh, well, I have a medical marijuana certificate.
Mhm.
Like
Puts
I'm
them
fine.
outside.
I'm
Yeah,
fine. They're in like a
yeah,
separate
yeah.
box. But the thing is, we're all in the same box. Like in my box, I mean like vehicle.
Yeah.
In the same bubble.
We're in the same bubble. But I mean, that's the reality. If you think about it, if you go for, any type of medical procedure and you're given, painkillers, they all will have little warning labels that
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
you can't be
Doesn't mean
operating
you
a
get to drive.
motorized
Yeah.
vehicle. If that's,
Yeah.
if that's something that you do, or you are, using for medical purposes, it doesn't exclude you from the law. You're still, at risk of damaging a lot of like lives. So I think it's just interesting that part is specifically highlighted, because a lot of people, I think, kind of get confused regarding that.
Oh, and we're out of time.
That's a quiet alarm.
All right, I guess we're moving on to our next topic, which will be the new distracted driving laws. So I'll read that out. Ontario's distracted driving laws apply to the use of handheld communication or entertainment devices and certain display screens. That means you cannot use a phone to text or call, use a tablet or other entertainment devices, or even program a GPS device while driving. The laws still apply when you're stopped in the traffic or at a red light. If you're allowed to use hands-free wireless communications devices with an earpiece, lapel button, or Bluetooth. You can view GPS display screens as long as they are built into your vehicle's dashboard or securely mounted on the dashboard. Drivers who are caught talking on their phones, texting, dialing, or emailing using a handheld device, such as a cell phone and other entertainment devices, will be fined up to $1,000 with a 3-day license suspension and 3 demerit points, which will increase after every conviction. After your third conviction, you will lose 6 demerit points and receive a 30-day suspension. You could even be charged with dangerous driving, a criminal offense that carries heavier penalties, including jail terms of up to 10 years for causing bodily harm or up to 14 years for causing death. So some pretty
Wow,
serious
that's a lot.
charges.
Heavy,
That's a little bit
bro.
heavy, yeah.
Wow.
Well, it should be, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, what does everybody think of these new proposed distracted driving laws?
3, 2, 1.
Oh. Let's get it.
All right,
What's
I
up,
guess
what?
you gotta go
You
first.
Yeah.
As the one who runs the distracted driving station at our event, the Sweet Life Roadshow.
Okay, so
I-
you're plugging. You're plugging.
I agree with most of this, except one thing that I've really noticed is that even the one part I agree with most of the stuff, don't get me wrong.
Mm.
I just had that something. But also there's a part in there where it says like, oh, hands-free devices are fine if you're still talking to someone. But I think even that still causes problems, and I feel like there should still be some more regulation around that as well, because the way that our brains work, when we're thinking of something else, that still makes it harder to pay attention to everything we can see on the road.
Yeah.
So our brain is still being used to think about that other conversation, even if we're not actually having something in our hand right like that.
Yeah.
That's just the
Still
one part of
No,
it.
I think
No,
that's
no.
really
That's a
fair.
fair
I think
point.
there
I
are
was
times where I've been
wondering about that.
driving.
Yeah.
Like I've been driving and although I'm not touching my phone, but because someone is on speaker,
Yeah.
like even just having like a Bluetooth or something in
Yeah.
your ear, like it definitely, like depending on what you're talking about, especially they always say you never want to drive if you're very angry because it
Yeah.
impacts your
Mhm.
reaction time. If you're having a
Mhm.
very, intense or aggressive phone call, like that could really impact
That's
the way
a
that you
big
drive.
But then the same thing could be said even about the passengers in the car.
Oh, that's
like,
very
when you're
true.
having
Yeah.
that conversation.
The difference
whether it's-
between that is though,
Okay.
is that in that situation you have two people that are in the same situation who are going to understand the situation around them. But when you're talking to someone who is on the phone somewhere else, that person doesn't understand like the situation
That's
in the
true.
car, and
That's
that makes a
true.
huge difference.
That's definitely very fair. Because
Yeah.
like if you are getting into a situation, like there's times where I've been driving before and I notice I'm approaching something or something will catch you off guard, like maybe someone made another driving error and you have to react to it. When you stop talking on the phone, the other person gets almost confused and like
Yeah.
if like you're talking, you'll just stop because you need to
Yeah.
focus.
because they're removed from that situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then they don't really know what's going on and you have to explain it to them and it becomes like a huge ordeal. Do you guys think the penalty is too harsh? Do you think it's fair?
I don't think it's too harsh because you're holding everybody's lives in your
That's
hands when
very
you're
true.
driving, right?
Yeah.
And if you're just taking a minute to use a text or check your phone, like that's just
Like it can wait. Like,
It
at
can
the end of the
wait,
day,
yeah.
It can wait, and like it's just one of those things because a lot of people just think that that's okay to just just a little peek or a little look or just a little answer them real quick, but it just takes like that quick second for something to go wrong, right? And at that point, then like you should get in a lot of trouble for not paying attention.
And I think the thing that's like really interesting here is that the same things apply when you're stopped at a red
Yeah.
or when you're stopped in traffic.
that's
Because people
interesting.
think, man, I've been sitting here for so long, like it's okay. I'll just like change my song or do whatever it is.
Mhm.
But the laws still apply.
You need to be ready for anything, even in that stop situation, because there's
That's
a lot
very
that can
true.
still happen that you need to be focused on.
Yeah.
No, plenty. Even if you think about like just emergency vehicles, if you're fiddling around with stuff, I think another thing that's interesting is also like food and drinks, how that
Yeah.
could become
Yeah.
an issue at some point. A lot of times people will go through the drive-through and then they'll decide to kind of eat their meal when they're driving home. Like
That's not a hands-free device.
No, that's not a
Yeah,
hands-free device at all.
seriously.
Like I mean, I've seen it before. Like you'll be at like stopped at a light and people like they have like a burger in one hand, they're drinking the other
Yeah.
hand, and it's like, can you not sit for 5 minutes and eat what you
Yeah.
need to do? Like it's almost just it can be a very selfish act if that's something that you decide to do.
That's true. And like a lot of times people say, like you probably heard it, like doing the distracted thing, like, oh well, I can do this and that. And like first of all, you can't. Like first of all,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how good you think you are, like you're not really focusing on two things at the
Yeah.
same time. And secondly, say you think you're good or whatever, sometimes it's not even you. Like, sometimes it's somebody else makes a
Yeah.
mistake.
And you don't
gotta
want other
react.
people to be doing that. If you wouldn't want other people to be doing it, why would you do it?
Exactly.
No, I think that's a really good point that you made, that although you could be doing everything right, sometimes things on the road happen that unfortunately aren't in your control,
Yeah.
but you can control how you react in those situations. So
Mhm.
if you're not, paying 100% attention and then you're not giving your all to that one, topic or one thing that you're doing, then like it might not even it could be someone else doing something and you just failing to react appropriately,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
could cause a huge issue.
Exactly.
So
What do you think? What's some of the weirdest stuff that you've heard at the events? Has anyone ever told you anything that was like crazy?
well, they'll just say like, oh yeah, no, like I'll stop at a red light, looking at my phone is fine. Like then
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, oh, I can do all this stuff while I'm driving. Like, I can eat my breakfast fine in the car when I'm traveling or stuff like that. And like some of the kids, like, oh, I'll see someone on the phone, they won't see it as a problem at a stoplight, but it is still a big issue.
Awesome.
Cool, we're out of time on that one.
Yeah.
So much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. Okay, let's get it.
All right,
Next one.
Oliver.
Oliver, it's your turn.
Okay, here we go. So, alcohol. So, there are a raft of potential changes to laws governing alcohol sales and consumption, including allowing licensed bars and restaurants to start serving alcohol at 9 a.m. rather than the current 11 a.m. start time. The government will also let municipalities establish rules about where booze can be consumed in public, such as some parks. Casinos will be allowed to advertise free alcohol to level the playing field with American competitors, and the province will loosen rules to allow licensed establishments to advertise happy hour promotions.
Oh, okay.
You ready to sign this one?
Hold on.
This one's tricky.
Yeah, this one is-
So this is kind of tricky.
Okay.
You guys all good?
I think I'm okay.
3,
Uh,
2, 1.
damn.
Interesting.
All right,
I
let's
think
get it.
interesting.
Okay, all right.
I think for me,
Alright.
if I had to be anywhere, I'd be like there.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'd be
I know.
I would be
I'm-
like,
I'm the
But I
fan.
think like for the most part, I'm more
More no.
no.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first then?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
I don't have any problems with them serving it earlier. just
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
I
no.
like the idea if you go for brunch with your friends. If
Yeah,
I want to have like a
yeah,
mimosa,
exactly.
like I think that's
That's
fine.
okay.
I don't think that's a problem. I mean, I don't really see that as an issue. I think the consumption in public can be tricky.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because, especially in parks, that can be very iffy depending on like broken glass. And we have a lot of children who go to parks. I think,
Mhm.
like I don't know if we're there yet or like how the law like specifically would look in that situation. The casino thing, I don't necessarily like. It's kind of an iffy thing. I don't think it's a huge problem. I understand like if if you think about where we were when we were in Windsor, Detroit's right across the like
Yeah.
body of water. So
Yeah.
I think for me it's more just like the parks that are a bit of an issue. And I don't necessarily have a problem with having the advertisement for the happy hour promotion because realistically, if I was walking along and I saw a promotion about happy hour and I was, in the mood for a drink and I was having dinner, that would be something that would, kind of
Entice you.
entice me.
Yeah.
I think it's just the thing that will also be kind of tricky is the fact that it's municipalities deciding which parks. So that means a place like Mississauga
Oh,
could say
yeah.
yes, but Brampton
Yeah.
could say no, and
Oh.
Toronto could also say no. So it gets very, very confusing if everyone's not on the same page. And then
If you're not aware
You're not
of
aware.
where other places
Yeah,
are
you're
allowed.
good at home, but then when you go out with your friends, all of a sudden you can't do this.
I think like if it was on like a provincial basis, that might make things a little easier. Just like if you have drinking ages, they are different, but it's so much easier if you say, well, this whole place.
Yeah.
But I think for me, those are the two. What do you guys think?
I think for me, you said you didn't have a problem with like the starting at 9 a.m. thing, but I don't know, that one kind of gets me a little bit concerned because I'm thinking about how, just how busy roads can be in the mornings and some of that sort of stuff. It does get me a little bit concerned. I know that it'll depend on the person and I don't imagine a lot of people going out drinking that early anyway, but I can just see that potentially being just a slight hazard. And so that's why that one in particular, I'm just kind of
That's fair.
questioning.
Still.
Yeah,
But when I think of that, I just like mimosas. Like that's the first thing.
that was what I was
Because it's
thinking.
saying like restaurants will be allowed to serve
Yeah,
at
yeah,
that
yeah.
time. So if you're at a restaurant that early, like
Yeah, I'm gonna get a mimosa.
yeah.
But like, yeah, I think I like the one thing I had a problem was like the park thing and
Yeah,
stuff like
The
it.
public
The public thing because a lot of people I don't know. I think it's on the person and sometimes people just act reckless. Like we saw like this we had the Toronto parade, the Raptors parade, and like
Yeah.
things just like it just stupid things happen sometimes and so unfortunately sometimes it involves like alcohol and people just egos and everything. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Like it can be okay, but it can go wrong as well. But like everything else, I like that starting earlier. I had no problem. Just get your mimosa, be happy, and do
Yeah.
your thing, right? So I don't mind that other stuff. It's just being in public that's kind of a rocky issue.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think all the advertising, the happy hour thing, the casinos, and the earlier start time, I don't have an issue with any of that as long as people are responsible. And there are anomalies, of course. that those things will help for it. But as long as everybody's on the same page, what's right and what's good.
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, in public is where it gets tricky because, like you said before, you're not going to know in which municipalities.
Yeah,
The
that's
law
true.
you have to know beforehand,
Mhm.
and even kids, right? If they're just going to the park and things like that, you don't want them stepping on
Well, that's what
broken
I was
glass.
even just being around. Like I'm picturing
Yeah.
like, when I was a kid and I would go to the park. Like I don't know if my parents, if the ideal situation is to be around a bunch of people who are drinking.
Drinking,
That's
exactly.
true.
Like the
Yeah.
park is supposed to be a very family friendly and kind of like inclusive place for everybody, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best time for something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it can just get really messy.
And I think that, and it's crazy because I feel like that depends also like where we
Where?
are, you know, because there are like places that I know that, you know, they don't care. They have the family events, people
Yeah.
drinking and
Yeah.
everything. But the way I grew up was like, no, you're not. There's no alcohol when there's kids around, or you know what I mean, like that. I was never exposed to that, so it's a different thing.
I'm curious if they're gonna end up putting like signs like drinking okay
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
or
yeah.
because like I'm just as a consumer, like I understand it's up to all of us to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
But it can be very tricky to be aware of that many things. And
Yeah.
like at the same time. Cool.
All
right, well, we're out of time on that one.
That's
Ooh,
a
the
good
time
shot.
is
It
Two.
Shout out to Instagram, you know what time it is. Hi, baby. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
Two.
Yeah.
Okay. So
All right, left up.
Oh yeah, that's me stuff. Okay. All right, we're gonna talk about the speed limit, right?
Speed limit.
Okay.
The proposed one.
So the speed limit on the 400 series highway, including the 401, is 100 kilometers per hour, while other provincial highways range from 80 and 90. Until 1975, the speed limit on the 400, 401, 417, and QEW was 113 kilometers per hour, when it was lowered to 100 kilometers per hour in response to the oil crisis. Now Ontario will be testing increased speed limits of 110 kilometers per hour on 3 highways. The pilot will run on the Highway 402 between London and Sarnia, the Queen Elizabeth Way between Hamilton to St. Catharines, and Highway 417 from Ottawa to the Ontario-Quebec border. Oh, is this? Yeah. The harsh penalties for street racing stunt driving normally applies for driving 50 kilometers per hour over the speed limit. On these roads, the penalty will apply for driving 150 kilometers or more, not 160. So, yeah.
cool.
Okay, everyone ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
I'm saying no.
It's
Yeah.
straight, it's
Oh my
straight.
gosh. Okay.
No, this took, I was like, for a second, I was like,
Really? Okay.
I just think that once it's at, it's at 100 now, and people are already going way over,
120 at
then it
least.
becomes 110. And even though you were saying like the penalties for speed racing stay the same,
Yeah.
I think the thing is once it's at 110, people will feel a lot more relaxed of drifting over that even
That's
more,
very true.
and it can just get kind of crazy.
I think for me, it's make the speed limit what people are driving and then enforce the speed limit. Like if you go to other
Mm.
places in Canada, the speed limits on highways are a lot higher,
Mhm.
but going 5 or 10 clicks over, like that, you will get pulled over. Meanwhile, here, the speed limit's 100. You won't see many people driving 100,
No.
and you won't see, like, there will be obviously people pulled over, but you can't, like, everyone thinks like it's 100, but it's not really 100.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's make it so it's what everyone's actually driving, and then enforce it so there's no tolerance for going over.
I think the no tolerance thing is
But it's gonna be
really-
hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
to
they
change
gotta
culture,
enforce that.
exactly,
yeah.
To change driving culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I agree. Like already, people are going over the speed limit, but like it's not enforced as much. You know, like
It's
it's not. I've seen all crazy stuff. Like I'm looking at 150. Like I've seen people
Go
just
faster.
zoom by at at least 150.
At least.
And I'm saying they're like, wow, like they're allowed to do this right now. But
Because it's like that untold rule where left lane is the fast lane,
Yeah,
and you have the
yeah,
middle lane and
exactly.
the right lane, which
and
is
then
like
they get mad if you're in
If
the
you're going
left
the
lane.
speed limit,
And
yeah.
even if you're going like say 110,
That's too slow.
And that's
Yeah.
way too slow.
Yeah.
You gotta go faster than that. So yeah, it's crazy.
What do you think, Oliver?
Well, I think I agree with the fact that if it is going to be a higher speed limit, there has to be more enforcement around that. And just like we were saying with lane discipline, people don't really understand that that's the way that the lanes are supposed to work. Is that people that are supposed to be in the right lane are supposed to be a little slower. I feel like it's really bad, especially around Toronto area,
Mhm.
and I feel like that there needs to be more focus on trying to understand that or more education around that than there needs to be increasing speed limits and all that. But I think in terms of increasing to 110, I think it is a good idea, but as long as it's properly enforced and people understand how to use the lanes properly when you're driving on the highway.
I think for me, when I first heard about this, I thought it was 110 everywhere. Like I didn't know.
That's true,
Like
yeah.
I will
Yeah.
never be. It will be very rare for me in Mississauga to find myself in London, Sarnia, Hamilton, St. Catharines, or the Ontario-Quebec border.
Yeah.
Like this is a very small pocket, and I don't know if I'm also curious. Like I don't even know the area well. If that's the best
Yeah.
place to test this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I'm curious
Is
as
this
to
going
why.
to expand out to here?
How
Yeah.
does that work? I think that's what I'm more
Mhm.
curious about.
And setting those guidelines on like, okay, this is 110 and this is still 100. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a free for all. Not everyone can just go 110 now or like think that's their speed limit. Or
Yeah.
something.
I think it comes down to, again, like you need to have a lot of awareness about things like this going on. And I think the thing that needs to be highlighted the most is it's not everywhere.
Mhm.
It's going to be in these 3 places and these
Yeah.
3 places only, at
Where
least for
they're
now.
testing.
And they're testing it. That might not even happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm curious then, I almost wonder, like 100 to 110 for me isn't a huge drastic difference.
Yeah.
I wonder if that will even be, like if they did change the speed limit to 110, I'm curious if that would even have an effect on how people are driving. Because 10-kilometer difference isn't huge.
Or just the give or take becomes bigger.
That's
yeah.
more what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to make it what people are actually driving and
And
enforce it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But that
be like,
gets
this
hard,
doesn't
too.
mean that you now before if you were going 110, oh okay, now I could go 120.
Yeah.
and
No.
be good. Like no, this
I mean,
is
you stay at 110,
Yeah,
You stay
yeah.
at 110. No, I agree. And it will definitely get confusing. I think the thing about stunt driving is really interesting too,
Mhm.
that they kind of capped it
I
at
think that's
150.
good.
I feel like it should
That's
just be
good.
capped at
Yeah,
150
yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
I don't think it
Right,
needs to
yeah.
be 50, like I think just 150 is on the highway at least.
It
Like,
doesn't need to be increased at all.
No.
no, 100% not. I think that's one thing at least we all agree on.
If you're going, if you are going 150, like that's
Oh.
that's
Where are you
crazy.
going 150 to? In
Where-
Toronto?
yeah,
Where are
in
you going
Toronto,
on the
too.
401? Where are you
There's
going
no
150?
reason. There's no
With all the
reason.
traffic, that just seems
Yeah.
a bit absurd. So I guess I don't know, I'm curious to see
How
Yeah.
this gets
played out.
All right.
played out.
Nice. A good timing again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thanks for watching our live stream on the scenario in Ontario.
I think it's really important for everyone to be informed on what's going on because you can't truly care unless you're informed.
Yeah, so like we said, this is part of our Like You Care launch week that we're having. So we want to make sure that people are caring about themselves and everyone else on the road. And that's what we're trying to encourage through our PSA and this event and everything we're doing this week.
Exactly. And like Oliver said, we have a PSA out right now on YouTube. Hit us up at TL2D today. That's TL2D with a 2 today. Check it out. It's 30 seconds of songs. We all were a part of it. And if you want to look through, you can see us all in kind of a scene or two. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you,
watching.
guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Hey.
You gotta hit the buttons.
This is the awkward part where we gotta press the button.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, this is not ended yet.